This is CopyCat. What it does is up to you.
Hello and welcome to another installment of Foundry Live. I really appreciate you joining us, particularly those joining us from Hugo's desk. I think you're in for a treat as we welcome Victor Perez today to talk about his journey with CopyCat. We'll be taking a look at how CopyCat has been used in the production shots for the upcoming film Naples to New York by Academy Award-winning director Gabriele Salvatores. But I'm also joined by my colleague Luca Prestini. Luca, thanks for joining me. You may remember Luca from our last live stream, but if not, Luca is a compositor, a machine learning data specialist, and our copycat wizard. Luca's been working on these shots with Victor, employing some really fascinating data augmentation techniques in order to train copycat to generalize across a series of shots. And so if you're interested in how copycat works at scale, I think you're in for a treat. So hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end. So post them in the chat and we'll get through as many as we can. But anyway, enough from me. Let's welcome our guest, a man who really needs no introduction, a pioneering director, screenwriter, producer, VFX supervisor with over 25 years of experience. His credits on some of the biggest blockbusters of our time, including Dark Knight Rises and Rogue One. His live streams are a source of inspiration and education for so many VFX artists around the world. I love Victor's passion for filmmaking and the way he talks about his thought process, and I really encourage you to seek out his YouTube channel, Node by Node. As we've been working with Victor on this presentation, it's been really inspiring to see his journey of discovery with CopyCat, and I'm thrilled he's here to share that journey with you. Please give me a big virtual welcome to the incomparable Victor Perez. Welcome, Victor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Wow, what a presentation. I mean, I'm going to record this and put it on play every morning when I wake up. This is amazing, man. Thank you. Thank you.
You can just call me.
Okay, I will every morning. It just made me feel so good. So, hi, everybody. Let me just go straight to the point because I think we have a lot to cover. And I just want to make sure we are going to have the opportunity also to showcase the, as Adam said, a production shot. It's something very special because it's usually you show the work when it's finished, and in here is halfway. And I just wanted to showcase that, and we were very lucky to for the producers to allow us to show this shot because it's the perfect example of why CopyCat is so amazing. But before going into that, I think it's important that I start showing you what is CopyCat for the people that is not that familiar, or more in general, machine learning, which is at the end of the day what CopyCat is all about. So CopyCat is the machine learning model for Nuke. So we need to learn how to work with the machine. So I'm going to start with the broad strokes about this. So the first question that we need to understand is that beauty is the harmony of imperfections. So beauty for me, the photorealism, the ability to recreate reality, is actually the ability to see the imperfections and to synthesize a very complex world in a very simple structure, which is the nodal structure. You know, the nodal itself, the nodal structure itself is like this pattern of thoughts that we are putting in there. So that is why for me it's important to start from this, the imperfections, the ability to capture those details. The thing is, like, reality is infinitely complicated, so we need to understand what is important. So that's why machine learning is going to be a tool, but actually it's not a tool. We need to treat it as a tool, but actually machine learning or CopyCat is not a tool. And I'm going to tell you later what is actually machine learning for an artist. But right now, I'm going to tell you that chaos is at the base of the artistic creation. This presentation is so chaotic that AI, being so perfect, will be never able to craft it. What I mean is, like, the input of the artist is always the most important part. So CopyCat or machine learning, artificial intelligence, whatever, is always an add-on to the human creation. Without us, AI could not exist. So the ability to have this machine to help us is actually the ability to harvest the computer brain and just integrate it with yours. So this is a very cool thing. That is what I was exploring in this month, because I was preparing this presentation after I just put a challenge in there, just to say, okay, if we get like 100,000 subscribers for the channel of YouTube for Foundry, for this channel, I'm going to show you machine learning. And it was like, okay, let's see what happens. It was like missing. And then it was like in 3 days, it was like boom. So I said, okay, well, people is actually interested in this topic. So I'm very happy. And that was for me the excuse, just in order to understand not just how to use it, but how to transfer the knowledge. And this is the key of, working with AI, is to transfer your knowledge. But you need to learn how the computer is getting that knowledge. So we need to learn machine learning. So today, what we are going to discuss in here is things that you are going to see that they are all related, even if they sound like completely unrelated. But this is what I was talking about, chaos. And this is why I want you to experience what is someone just giving you chaotic inputs for you to understand something, because that is how Nuke feels. I like to use the word feel because they feel. So we need to understand how to transfer the feelings, how to transfer the information. When I was preparing this conversation with Adam and with Luca, I was always referring to this like teaching the machine, teaching. And it's not teaching, it's training, which is different. But sometimes you just treat the machine as a human being. It's not exactly like that. So you need to understand the thing. And for that, Luca show me how he crafted all the variation and iterations of the shot, and really it blew my mind. So stay until the end for seeing that. So today we're going to talk about the night sky. We are going to talk about my personal assistant. Of course, I'm going to show you the basics of training copycats, the methodology. And then we are going to see at the end this live breakdown of a shot that is live on there. There is no it's not a breakdown that has been recorded. It's the actual script that is being used for that. And I'm going to show you the most important thing, the question that is going to answer all the points, which is one shot to rule them all, like the Lord of the Rings. It's just by crafting one, you are actually getting three. So this is why I thought this is the perfect example, because it's a shot that is extremely complex to craft manually. So the approach is slightly different, but then once you craft one, you have the other two for free. But literally, it's just plug one node. And I'm going to show you, it's just by plugging one node. So why do we want to talk about the sky in the night? Well, everything is about patterns. So the key of evolution for human beings is just that, is the ability to recognize patterns. And the sky is just because at a certain point in the history of evolution, someone was looking at the sky and they realized that every time the stars are in a certain position, is a good time to start planting and getting something in the ground that is going to grow. And at the same time, they were observing that when the stars were in a certain position, certain animals were migrating and others were arriving. So things were changing with the position of the sky. Of course, the seasons. We have the position of Earth in relation to the sun. That is going to create a certain configuration of the stars. So the ability to recognize that pattern created that understanding of that ground truth. The ground truth that is like, when you have that constellation in there and the other in there, it's a good time to plant. So this is the key of everything, not just for human beings, but it's the exact same principle of machine learning. It's just the ability to understand patterns. So how we transfer the patterns, that is going to create that ground truth that we want. And I can tell you that there are ground truths that are going to be pre-baked on your brain. So these models, we can call them, okay? So let's hunt. I just going to play a game with you. I know you are online, but no worries. We can play the same. You can even play at home. But where would you go? Left or right? I'm going to show you the image. And just think about that. If you want to hunt, where are you going to hunt? You are going to the left or you are going to the right? Okay? For everybody that is going to the left is going to eat chicken tonight. The others that are going to the right, they are the dinner for the beer. So this is the thing. There are things that they are innate in you because you know that if those are the footprints and those are very big, you can imagine the rest of the animal. So there are certain things that you have like a set, a pre-baked set, or a certain model. So in here we are analyzing a data set, which is the footprints of certain animals. So when you learn the animals, you understand that, oh, this belongs to this animal. So when I see this, I'm chasing that. Or when the footprints are in the other way around, they are chasing me. So be careful. So this is the thing, is the ability to recognize. I was using this example. I know it's very silly, but is the pattern recognition the key, the basics, the fundamentals of this machine learning, that you can also fill the gaps with exactly the same way. You can just give pre-baked models, so models that are already pre-trained, and you can have like faster outcomes. It's the same like having like a footprint of something you don't recognize. So the first thing is like, is this big? Is this small? But if you already are familiar with certain footprints, you already know that A, can I eat that? Or B, is that going to eat me? So you have like a basic grounds to start working with the thing. So pattern recognition is a way of working in an efficient, super fast, automatic, reliable, usually right in a certain context, and help avoid lethal risk. Well, this is about real human evolution. The last point, the help avoid lethal risk. Well, if you miss the deadline, that can be lethal risk because you can lose your job. So this is the thing. Is at the end of the day, it's exactly the same parameters. Pattern recognition, the ability to set a ground truth and have an outcome that is going to repeat every time you have a certain input for that. So that is creating that pattern. So you need to understand how to handle that. Because for me, now that we are talking about handling and giving patterns and stuff, right now I can tell you and I can confess that when I first, a few years ago, I first had my personal assistant, it was very difficult to start working with a personal assistant. Why? Because I was thinking, no worries. It takes me less time to do that than to explain this. So in the beginning, it was very difficult for my personal assistant to help me because I didn't allow to be assisted. Well, the thing is like, you need to understand when you are working with machine learning, the long run. So you sometimes, of course, if you are going to spend more time doing something with machine learning, with CopyCat, maybe it's not worth it. But always evaluate. If it's the computer making the effort of the calculation, well, computers are made for calculations. If it's you are way slower, you are less efficient, you are an artist, so you don't want to get bothered. So the thing is like understand where the computer can outgo you, so it can help you. So what I will say is, as a rule of thumb, every time you have something repetitive, something that can be calculated, just go with CopyCat. In the beginning, it's going to take time for you to learn and to understand. But trust me, the more you use it, the more you are going to learn how to use machine learning. So it's training the machine and training yourself. In the beginning, of course, as an artist, and I am the first one, we are going with the things we know they work. Why? Because they work. So why should I risk my time into something that I don't understand? Well, for me, in my success as a career is that I recognize the power of personal projects, projects that help you experiment, that you allow yourself the time and the space to fail. Failure is very important. You cannot get success without failing before. So failure is actually the way you learn. I have a friend that always said, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Well, learning is actually one of the luxuries of this being an artist, this thing. So for me, when I started understanding that I was just, instead of training my personal assistant, I was just taking the time, it took me a while, but I started training my personal assistant and I was learning myself what things can be delegated to my personal assistant, what others is better that I do it myself. And you create your own rules, your own set of rules. And that is the most important part, is you find your way. So machine learning, as I said, is not a tool. CopyCat is the only node that you have in Nuke that is not actually a tool. So if CopyCat is not a tool, what is CopyCat? Well, CopyCat is a service. So if you study that, it's a service that is like duplicating yourself. So how many times you have thought about, I cannot make this. I will need to have like a twin brother, like with my same knowledge or everything. Well, the service is that, is the ability to do whatever you can do if you are able to transfer that. So Copycat is not going to replace anybody. It's just going to give you the power of duplicate whatever you can do. And at a certain point, that is exponential. So the more repetitive tasks you have, the more time you are going to save. And time, let's not forget, that is money. So if you can do, in the time that someone else is going to do 20 shots, you are able to do 200 shots. My friends, you are pure gold, because you are producing an amazing amount with the same time and with the same effort. Less effort, actually, because the effort is always for the first one. The first one is the one that you need to understand. But the trick is, the more you use it, the more you understand and you get what you need to tell the machine in order to get the machine to do what they need to do. So I think it's enough to talk, and I think it's time for you to see. So let me show you with this shot that I just put it in here. And as you can see, the script is completely empty. The only node that I use in here is just the reduce noise, just because it's what I'm going to do is just to remove these dots, these markers that are in the face. Of course, the first thing is painting. And for me, it's important to start with this base, which is the technique is not changing. So you are not doing a different way of removing the markers. No, you are going to remove the markers in exactly the same way. But instead of removing the market for all these frames that are exactly 274, so let me set the project right. Here you are, 274 frames. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to use the more significant data in order to teach. Okay, I just said teach, to train. But I'm going to treat my computer as a human, because the day the computers are going to rise and try to kill the whole humanity, maybe Nuke is going to remember that I was nice, so they are going to spare my life. So it's okay, it's a joke. I don't think Nuke is going to, well, you never know. I'm not going to talk so loud. Anyway, so we have in here, if I ask you, how would you do that? How would you remove those dots? So probably the first thing that you are going to tell me, okay, you track them, or you can track the same, the face, or you can track different, you track. So you stabilize, you paint, or you match move. But the thing is like, you need to create a way of doing this in a certain procedure. Well, with CopyCat, you don't need to track anything actually, because you are not actually following the head or following the marker. It's just going to follow a pattern, but the pattern is going to be independent or irrelevant, or where in the screen it is, if the pattern is respected. So the way is going to be different, but the noise, the question of the noise, is exactly the same thing. So now, because this presentation and this streaming of today, you are very lucky because it's 25 hours straight of streaming. I'm going to do this shot from straight. So thank you very much. Now you can wait for me to finish the shot. Of course not. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you that the problem that you have when you are trying, by the way, we have 1 hour. So the problem that you have when you are trying to remove the dots in here is like, you're going to notice that there are certain markers that are in light, and then in another frame range, they are in darkness. So it is really difficult to find one model by baking one frame that is going to work for everything. So you need to create some sort of dynamic way of removing those dots. So what I did for these shots that I already I completed, but I wanted to do it in here just to showcase how really easy it is. It's like the first thing we are going to do is I'm going to select the frame range node. Why? Just because I'm going to tell Nuke that every step that I'm going to work in here, every image is just going to be one frame. By setting the frame range, you are just streaming metadata in the script that is just going to say that the whatever you pick is just going to be one frame long. Okay, it's just a technical thing. And then I'm just going to pick 3 positions where the markers are going to be either in light or in shadow or halfway, so in penumbra. So in order to do that, I already selected the nodes. So I just in here. So I selected three nodes, 3 frame holes that I'm going to put in here. So I have this one, and this one. So it's the face basically oriented into more or less the 3 angles. So the light that is coming from the side is actually just getting that different positions for that. Okay, so these those are the frames that I'm going to be painting. In CopyCat, it is important that you establish two elements for working. If we go to the node itself, if you want to see CopyCat in here, it has 2 inputs. So it's asking you for 2 sets of data. One is going to be the ground truth, and the other is going to be the input. The ground truth is like, what do you want me to do? And the input is like, every time I see that, I'm going to do this thing. So the thing is like, every time you see those 3 frames, you are going to do those 3 painting operations that I'm going to do. And the painting is just very simple. Okay, so it's just painting. I'm not going to do anything fancy, okay? And instead of just painting in here, again, just to save a bit of time, because I prefer to give you the time for the other shot, I'm going to get the cleanups in here. So here you are, frame 28, frame 91, frame 241. So yeah, here you are. This, and this is the original, this is the original, and this is the original. So the thing is like, what I'm going to do is, remember that I put in here this, so it's going to take into consideration 1 frame of every node that is here below, because the node that I'm going to use now is append clip. Here you are. It's a node that you don't use that often, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to append this, and this. The order is important, because what I'm going to do in here, if I put now my viewer in here, look, last frame 3. So if I go to my input, you have frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3. This is why I put this frame range. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to put frame 1, frame 2, and frame 3. Okay? So I have the same setup that I have in here. I have in here, but just without any work. So this is my ground truth, and this is my input. So this is CopyCat. This is actually the setup, the basic setup. There are other ways of complicating the setup, well, complicating, adding iterations to the setup in order to make it actually less complicated, which is instead of working with double the nodes, you can just work with 2 streams using the layers, for instance, which is how Luca, for instance, he was working with this methodology. And to be honest, without that methodology, the script that he crafted that is already big will be double the big. So this is going to save, using 2 streams of layers is going to save a lot of space. I just wanted to put it here in an explicit way because you can see that the actual thing that CopyCat is doing is just that. You just give a set of frames, you select the same set of frames, and you are going to say, every time you find this, you are going to do this. Every time you find this, you are going to do this. Every time you do this, you find this, you do that. And then CopyCat is just going to say, oh, wait, actually, when I find something that is similar to that, I'm going to do something that is similar to this and that. So it's going to start being trained for iterations. Something that they are going to hear when you are working with CopyCat is the word augmentation. Augmentation is a way of making CopyCat to focus on a certain area or to implement a certain element. So augmentations are going to provide for data that actually you are inventing. So you are faking reality in order to recreate instances that you can find. For instance, here in this marker never goes to this side, so it never goes that dark. Well, if you put, for instance, a grade in here and just make, well, I'm going to put it in here so you can see it. So if you make this marker this dark and you craft the same amount of brightness of this one, so you are training actually for CopyCat to understand that there are iterations on the brightness of the whole thing, on the shadows, and so you're inventing data. Or you can, another way of augmentation is just to focus on a certain area, so to have a crop. So we are going to crop just to tell CopyCat that, hey, I don't want to focus on the whole wall. So don't look at the wall. I don't need the wall. I need the face. And this is actually very important. Telling the CopyCat that you don't need the wall by focusing on the face is really important. And maybe sometimes it's going to be also important that you maybe go this way and you show maybe something like this, the eye. And you can tell me now, because I can, when I'm doing augmentations, I'm going to do augmentations in both sides. So I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to connect this and to connect that. Is that a problem that I have different formats by the crop that I'm reducing pixels? It's not a problem, but the pixel, the actual ratio of the image is exactly the same. So I'm just discarding elements, discarding pixels. So the thing is like in here and in here, so in my ground truth and in my input, both images are the same. Is this important? Absolutely yes. There are many instances where telling CopyCat, hey, don't touch this, don't touch the eye. So when you are telling CopyCat that is the same in the input and in the ground truth, you are actually telling, hey, don't touch the eyes. So it's also a good thing. So augmentations are important for both, for telling what to do and what not to do. So it's exactly like anybody else when you are teaching, and I have quite a bit of experience teaching, and sometimes learning for the errors is a very good thing. So you can just say, don't touch this. It's actually the first thing that I say, don't touch the background plate. So whatever you do, work on the CG, but don't touch the background plate. Well, it will be translated with something like that. It's like, don't touch the eye. So this is you telling the order. So you need to understand that the way that you are sculpting your script is to provide for information. So at the end of the day, what you have in here is a set of data that is just that, is establishing your new ground truth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase the other script that I have in here, which, as you can see, is exactly the same thing. I just added the crops for the augmentation, and I just put everything. I like to do this. I like to use contact sheets in order to see what is building up. And with this, I'm just comparing my ground truth set against my input set. And as you can see in here, I have the whole frame, because it's important that you provide with the whole frame. So CopyCat has the context. As I said before, context is important. So in here you have the context. And then below is like, okay, let's talk about the face. So you can leave aside the wall. The important thing is like the face is in there. So this is a structure. It's exactly the same thing. I just created this in order to be fast and to be clear. But what I want to show you, because maybe someone can be afraid of, oh my God, this can just take forever for rendering because it is artificial intelligence and that requires like super mega computers. No, of course, the better the graphic cards, the better, of course, like the better, the more RAM, the more, of course, the more, the better. But just to be honest with you, this script is right now is being broadcasting from my laptop, which is not even the latest MacBook Pro laptop that is available in the market. Is from 3-4 years ago. It's still serving me well, so why to change it? The render time, what I did is I created a video of the actual render time. So I'm going to show you the video, so I can comment the video in the meantime. So this is the video. Just give me a sec, and it's going to take 1 second to start the render. Here you are. So in here, what you are seeing is now CopyCat starting to compare. So those miniature are the preview. So the preview is just showing me in the first column, the one on the left is the input. The one in the middle is later. Okay, yeah. The one in the middle is the what is happening. So my ground truth, and the one in the right is the actual calculation and iterations that CopyCat is trained. So let's go forward, because it's not fast because it's a render. But look, in 1 hour, we already have something like quite cool and interesting. So you can see the column on the right; those are called crops. So the crops are actually the fractions of the image, because CopyCat is not just selecting everything. So in the time, it's just selecting random crops and just analyzing those random crops. As you can see on the right, there is a graphic that is just going down, 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 down. That means that it's showing me the difference between the comparison of the input and the ground truth. So it's a way of CopyCat to understand in those frames how things are working. So it's just understanding the error. So as you can see, in 2 hours on a laptop, a few minutes later, it's just getting that. But by the end of the render, and I'm going to show you later the parameters that I was using, but in here it's almost finished, and it's just taking less than 3 hours. So the final render, I believe it was like slightly above 2 hours and a half. So yeah, it was almost 3 hours. And that was the parameters for this. So it was starting with 50,000 epochs. Okay. So that was creating 50,000 steps for the steps are the how many times it's just going to evaluate the image. This is something that is going to be relative with the amount of frames that you are feeding. So there are different parameters, but that is something that you are going to understand. Like, it's like camera tracking, for instance. I think the curve of learning this is like the curve of learning the camera tracking, match move in general. It's like, how many features do you need to track a camera? Well, it depends on the scene. And is that feature going to work in that? Sometimes it takes less time just to give it a go, just let it for a while, and then you just start understanding. So in these instances, what happens in there? So camera tracking that has this kind of element of, I'm going to call it mystery. Like, of course, you have a good intuition, but until you start doing, you are not going to understand. Of course, you know that, motion blur is going to be a problem. Defocus is going to be a problem, when you have these rolling shutters, things. But that is just going to come naturally when you have the experience. So what I would like to do now that we have this, if you want to learn more about the setup of this and the parameters, I'm not very into showing you the buttons, because you have an amazing page for Foundry Learning that is just going to provide you with plenty of tutorials on how to press the buttons. For me, the important is like to have an overall vision as an artist and show you the possibilities, and at the end of the day, we are talking about something that seems apparently that is super complex, but trust me, with 3 images, I crafted the shot. So it was working very well. I'm not going to show you, there is a reason I'm not going to show you the inference node in here, because there is a problem with Zoom. Zoom and Nuke, when it's using the GPU, it is going to make Zoom crash. But I don't mind to share the script online if you like, and you can just search on your own. But yeah, I can tell you that the shot is finished in here. I'm not going to show you here, and I didn't have a pre-render, because if I pre-rendered this, what is the point? Of course, I can show you that the shot is working. No, I'm going to show you I'm going to share the script for free, so everybody can check that. It's very, very simple. But just by what I meant in here is just by doing 3 frames, and just less than 3 hours of time, this shot of 274 frames was perfect, sharp, perfect. So that is the power of CopyCat. So now what I'm going to do is, let me close this, because I have already enough windows of Nuke open. And the next one that I'm going to show you is actually kind of a monster. Yeah, this one. I am fascinated by this script. My good friend Luca Prestini created this, so I want to call him on stage to be here with me on this virtual stage. Just give me a sec. I'm going to show you. Let me just show you. Hi, Luca.
Hello.
Hi. So Luca was crafting this and just trying all the techniques for the machine learning. And let me just show you this is a pre-render. Again, we have the inference. I cannot dare to put my viewer in there, but he was very well organized, so he put a pre-render. And I'm just going to scroll around in here, okay? This shot is super, super complex. I remember when we were shooting, I was looking at the monitor and I was saying like, well, this is a lot of work. And probably, if you haven't seen the presentation at FMX, that was the first time that I showed this shot. That is going to be in the trailer, so that's why they allow us to do it next month. The film is going to be released later this year. If I show you this, probably, and I have been scrolling like for a while, and you still haven't noticed anything strange. Well, let me show you the original now. Yeah. The task in here is to remove those in there. And you can say, well, it's just a painting. Many people say, painting is super easy. Oh, yeah? Well, hello. Have a look at the people that is walking in front of that with the camera moving, with shadows, in different environments of lights, different positions on the screen, and it's like very, very visible. And of course, because one shot is not enough, you have more than one. You have actually 3 shots, all of them with different camera positions, getting closer, getting farther, getting different perspective, and yeah, you have a lot of variations. In a traditional way, you should paint, track manually, of course, and reconstruct the shadows. A lot of rotoscoping for the people, and yeah, is a difficult one. I have to admit that this one that sounds like very, very simple is a very difficult one. So the thing is, like, the way Luca approached this shot, and I'm talking to this, and I'm grateful that Luca allowed me to talk about that. I'm the visual effects supervisor of the movie, so now I'm getting familiar with this. By the way, he was using new models that are going to be available. I cannot say much about that, but I already said. But we have, for instance, Llama. Llama is a new model that is, I think Llama stands for Large Model for in Paint. Maybe I'm correct. Yeah. So Llama is going to be a tool that, guys, trust me, you are going to use a lot. I cannot say, because of course that will be a secret, so I cannot say about the Cryptomat, because they have a tool to create cryptomats of the people. Oh my, I'm so excited. So I'm going to focus on the shot, okay? But yeah, they have things coming on the next version that I've seen things you humans couldn't believe. So let's go for the shot. So first of all, Luca just approach one shot, and at the end, the result was applied to the other 2 shots with no work whatsoever. It was just mint, just like that. So it's vanilla. You put the inference you create for one and you put it in the other. That's it. And it was working perfect. And I don't mean perfect like accurate. No, it's like pixel perfect with the same precision that you have for the first one. So, of course, the first thing starts with the real data. And as you can see, he did exactly the same thing that I did. So the structure is you are going to discover is exactly the same. Then you go, you select certain frames, and then you go the auxiliary models. In here, in this area, for instance, he was using different resolutions. So he was going to lower, maybe, am I wrong? You were using like lower resolution to go fast, to make the calculations faster.
It was like a workaround to an issue, to a different issue, because like the Llama group was working better at smaller resolution. Yeah. And then upscaling that then was creating filtering issues. So I was sort of mimicking the filtering issue that Llama was creating to then train a CopyCat model to overcome that. And that's then created like the patch clean, which was nice.
That is something that blows my mind. So you work in less resolution, and then you upscale, and you apply also an inference to upscale. So you can improve also the same results. So yeah, this is the structure for doing the first in Paint, and then you have this area that I love, that he's faking data. Well, the thing of faking data, that, by the way, he's just using one stream for everything. So you have like different elements in different in here in different parts. So he was using motion, as you can see, to establish the ground truth, and the RGB was the input. So this is a nice way of carrying everything in one stream. And Nuke, one of the coolest part is that you have the multi-layer structure. So in here, the fake data is like, yeah, he was inverting certain areas. But you know what, Luca, why don't you show us the thing instead of me just going through the script, because nobody better than him shows this.
Sounds good. Do you want me to share my screen, or do you?
Yeah, well, yeah, like you can.
Okay, let me just. Okay, I think you need to stop sharing first.
Let me stop my sharing.
All right. Just a moment.
I just find it fascinating.
So, Victor, while we're waiting, this shot looks like it would have taken an enormous amount of effort. Would it have been viable without CopyCat, or would you have? How would you have approached it otherwise?
I can say that you can do this without CopyCat, of course.
Sorry, would it be financially viable?
No, absolutely not. I will suggest the director not to go with that shot, because it will be like an immense amount of money, because to craft this every shot will take something like 4 weeks. So 3-4 weeks per shot is just too much money for something that is not that relevant. So with this, you take way less time and you do all three. So it's actually the value of, and we are talking about big numbers in here. It sounds very crazy, but the shots are super long. It's like around 250 frames every shot. So it's not commercially viable. So thanks to CopyCat, you can actually accomplish these kind of shots. So you have more freedom as an artist. And knowing this, and I will admit that knowing CopyCat is as important for visual effects supervisors as per artists, because as a supervisor on set, you can look at the monitor and understand, oh, yeah, I can do this procedurally, and even collecting data on set and getting camera and results to feed CopyCat. But I'm going to stop talking. I want to see what Luca has in there.
All right, thank you, Victor. So in here, what Victor was mentioning was like because again, like I always try and work with time in mind, because time is of the essence, especially when you're a compositor and you're in production and everything needs to be done quickly, and you want to take the least time as possible. So here I was essentially creating fake drains to create more variety in my data set, so that I would have more drains, more real frames, real in-painted frames to train on. So it was actually quite simple. I simply, wrote out the metal bit, and then just started placing it in different areas where the metal bit wasn't there. However, this is not just enough to just add it there and then you say, oh, this is done and dusted, because obviously CopyCat, it's kind of smart. If he sees that there is only this added, then it was like, I'll just remove the metal bit. I don't need to do anything inside it. So then something that you need to add on top is like, okay, let me change the inside as well. And then like CopyCat will learn that, okay, I need to focus on something that looks like, I don't know, sort of metal. It has some sort of reflections. And then, inside there is also this type of pattern that is a bit weird, and I need to remove that and make it match with the thing outside. So like this section here is essentially just like creating a lot of these big grain around the image, and then simply just removing them by using the original plate, because that's free data. Why waste time painting when you can just...
Yeah, this is fascinating, because as a compositor with a lot of experience, my approach will be the contrary. It's like, oh, let's spend a lot of time painting. Let's just create the right ground truth. But actually, you are creating the input in here. So it's so cool.
Yeah, like it's something that actually worked very well. It really helped. At the beginning of the shot, when Victor came to me, because again, time, and the first thing I tried to do was just simply to train with these instead even of just creating the real data. Unfortunately, that wasn't quite enough. So then I created just 2 frames. But then that combination of the two things was enough to start pushing this shot forward, which was quite impressive. So here I'm just like, reading these images back in. Something very interesting as well that I think it's worth mentioning when talking about data preparation is like you need to create, all your data needs to be consistent. So if you start feeding different frames in your CopyCat, and like, human brain is very easy to trick, like if I look at this, let's look, if I look at this one and I paint it, as a human, it's really hard to recreate the paint on different frames with the lines of the tiles to be identical multiple times. Almost impossible. I can bet a pine that you will never be able to do it twice in a row. And CopyCat is very sensitive to that. So when if you'll see that this line is, shifted this much, when it will reach that frame, then we'll start flickering and the line will be shifted as well. So what I've done for every time that I needed to add more frames, all I was doing was taking the first original 2 frames, warping them to match, just warping them. I'm just using a transform and a corner pin to match the, is it gonna appear? Hello? Oh, sorry, wrong channel. To match the perspective of the shot that I want to work on. And then I would just relight these so that then I have a new frame that is sort of matching. So like this is like the frame I'm working on. All I've done is legit just relighting the original frame and just corner pinned it so that the perspective is right. And this is just repeated throughout the shot to save time and keep consistencies in between my paint frames. This is crucial because, again, like if you start having inconsistencies there, CopyCat will not know what to do because you're essentially saying, oh, you need to make every time a different thing. And how do you go about that?
Yeah. So you are creating as much ground truth as inputs, and also generating the data that you understand that is the consistency is more important than the precision at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And this really worked. It pushed the shot a lot forward. But I think like the thing that really, really helped in this shot was adding the augmentation to cover the occlusions. So in this shot, as Victor showed before, there is many people walking in front of the drains, all dressed differently. And at the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna roto a couple of people. And like, again, I'm not gonna roto them because I have access at least because I work with Foundry. I got all the new tech. So I've had access to the latest and greatest. And one of the greatest tools that we have now is, well, that is gonna come out soon, is a model called Segment Anything from Meta. And we converted it to CAT. Soon it's going to be released in the new version of the category. And that model can create a cryptomarked version of a plate. The model is not here, but this is the output of that model.
Wow.
The result here is not perfect, but it does what I needed to do. So then I just selected the people. I wrote it, masked the people, and then I just transformed these people on top of the trains to create some augmentation. Did a training with that, and that started to work better. But, at that point, I started realizing, hey, I cannot really mask every different person that is in the shot because it's too many variation. How can I create fake variation of people or colors covering the thing? Because at the end of the day, people to CopyCat is not people. It's pixel with a certain color covering a certain part of the screen. So then I was like, okay, I need to create random colors and with this very specific shades because, the humans come in all shape and form. So how can I do this? I'll use a noise node. And this is the sort of the more interesting part of this script, or at least I think, because I didn't expect it to work at the beginning, which is always fun. I guess I'm part of research and I need to research stuff. And this is a fun problem to try and solve. So what I've done here is I've taken a bunch of constant nodes with colors, and I just created a starting mask.
I mean, everybody can think that, oh my God, this script is so complex, it's so big, but it's copy and paste. It's basically one structure, copy and paste several times with different variations. But
and most of the time, if I even avoid the copy and paste, I just reuse the same node and I put the time offset, and it's the same.
Yeah. In different frames, it's amazing.
Yeah. So here, like I'm just using an SD map. I add a noise, and then I have like this crazy noise pattern that I pre-multiply, and then add on variation of my first data. And then I have many of these that like we can see here. And it's just variation of random colors covering my patterns to fake occlusions with different colors. And you say, hey, but how does this help? You know, like you cannot even see the drain in this. Like, how is this helping? If you go and look at the shot, there are moments in which there are so many people covering the drains that like the only thing you see is like 20 pixels, 30 pixels. And like the inference node still needs to work there. CopyCat needs to learn to work that is, even when it only sees like a certain patch of texture, it still needs to work there. So like I really needed to have something that was covering sometimes a lot, sometimes a little bit. And like the noise tool is like the perfect tool to do this because it gives me just random edges that is procedural, and I don't have to really decide what happens. Then here, so I've done the first training with this, and this was working very well. So I was like, okay, let me go crazy and keep adding more on top of this. So then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna reuse these colors, and what do I need to do? Because it still wasn't working when there wasn't very much space, and I'm like, okay, expression can create, grit. And what I needed here was just like, okay, let me start making different type of stuff, and all of these are animated as well. So like they change size through frames, and then like they start going crazy as well. This is not the most psychedelic one. I'll show you the most psychedelic later. But essentially here I have occlusions of like a grid with different color, again, just covering the drain. And when I added this, again, the shot improved a lot further. So then I was like, okay, let me build on this. And then I went down and I started repeated. And like this section here is just like a repetition of what's happening here with different colors, different type of patterns, and just, trying to build on that way procedurally. Because again, like the aim is saving time, because otherwise if you have to do the shot and add every frame yourself, you may as well just do the shot, because there needs to be a gain there in value. Let me find the super crazy one.
It's psychedelic training now. So
No,
it's
not
like
this one here.
It's like the 70s.
I think it's this one.
This one. I was super fascinated by this because it's actually working very well, because it's giving enough randomization of edges, shapes, colors. So this is what I meant before. It's like, look at what when we were discussing about this, he was telling me it was really cool, because the more I work with that, the more I understand that sometimes the logic is very different from the human logic. So when you apply this as a compositor, it would make no sense to you, but it makes sense to the machine. So this is the thing, is like, the more you use CopyCat, the more you are going to start having these crazy ideas. But actually the crazy ideas are crafting the shot. And it's procedural. So even if you see a lot of notes, it's a lot of how to invent different patterns, and I guess that you can even save this as tool sets or presets or something that you can just put in there quite procedurally every time that you need to make the occlusions or to invent.
I'm trying to think of a way to put these in a gizmo where you can maybe decide the range of random colors and the type of like patterns that you want in there. Because definitely if this would have been just a tool, it would have been obviously a lot easier. But never done this before. This was like the first time that actually we had such a complex shot. And this is not an easy shot to work on. Something else that I would like to mention before maybe we start doing the questions, I don't know if we still have time for that, but is like these at the very end, the identity frames, is I want to retouch on what Victor said at the very beginning. These are very important, because like once you need to finish the shot, if I wouldn't train without these, when I was going to apply inference was just, okay, I removed the drains, but that type of tile sort of reminds me of the color that the thing was up there. Let me just paint it a tiny bit. And then sometimes you also have like, let me just show you. There was issues in which like the hat of the boy was being painted, or just, I don't know, a bit of the pant, or this drain up here that for some reason doesn't need to be removed. CopyCat was just like, inference was just like, I'm gonna remove that as well. And that's not part of the brief. So you just add the frame that like is covering that. And then, it just CopyCat learns not to touch it.
Yeah, it's super cool. So the basic structure in this script, even if it seems super complex, is actually identifying what are the best shots, generating the set of data for the fake, the fake occlusions and augmentations, and then focusing on the areas that you need to work as much as the areas that you don't need to work. So it's just those three things. So it's like, as I said in the previous script, the one with the markers, is very simple. Of course, everything is simple once you know what to do. But this is the trick, is that the more you use it, the more you are going to understand. So look at the last thing that I'm going to ask you before going to the Q&A is like, can you just put the viewer in the other two nodes that were just work just with the inference? Yeah. So yeah, that is the inference node. So the result of CopyCat, the same of the first shot applied vanilla to the other. So without touching a single pixel. This for me is like voodoo magic. It's like, what? You are doing a shot without touching? Yeah. So this is why it's so cool. This is why I really love machine learning, because this is the repetition. And every artist in the world, even if you love the shot or whatever, you don't like repetition. You just want to craft one to rule them all. Well, so this is the logic. So thank you very much, Luca. It's really, really remarkable. And I learned so much by working with you and by working with this shot. So thank you.
Thank you for giving us the chance to work on this. It was very useful for us as well to learn.
Thank you. My pleasure. So Adam, do you want to go with any questions or?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time for questions, but not very much. Let's do a couple. But yeah, I just want to, first of all, just reiterate that, these techniques are advanced and they're not necessary for most shots. I don't want people to come away with a message thinking that they have to learn all of these difficult concepts, as
no, not at all.
As Victor showed in that first use case, it can be really simple, but this is trying to make something that works across multiple shots. And CopyCat, the large size model, is capable of generalizing to whole sequences if you give it the right data. And Luke has pioneered some interesting ways of building that data set with doing as little work as possible. But we do have a question, which is how much it took to put this together, Luca. How much time have you spent on this? And then I guess the follow-up question would be for you, Victor, how long would you think it would have taken to do it the traditional way?
So I think it's hard to describe the actual amount of time, because as much as I've been working on this, I'm also doing my other job with Foundry. So the actual training time, I guess my time has been I've worked on it effectively, maybe let's say 3 weeks. But in those 3 weeks, I would work a couple of hours in the morning, maybe 1 hour and a half in the morning, 1 hour and a half in the evening. I would do morning, set up a training, get the results in the evening, look at the result, set up another training for the night, repeat in the morning. Because during the day, I have my normal job duty. And it's not to say that this is not part of my job. We're happy to help clients, but I have also other responsibility to do. So it's really hard to say. I would say, 3 weeks, but 3 hours a day. So really different.
Yeah. In production, that would be while you are doing other shots, you leave the server to be calculating that. So it's a task that is going in parallel with the others. If you dare to take these 3 shots as a regular in-paint work, in my experience, if I had to do it, and I think I know how to use Nuke quite a bit, so it will take me something like 2 months for the 3 shots in order to craft it really well. So it's 2 months against 2-3 hours a day for 3 weeks. So the ratio is just ridiculous. I mean, now on, I will never ever approach anything else. I always going to try first with the CopyCat, because even if you don't get it with CopyCat, you are going to learn something, and that is going to build up for the next one. So yeah.
Thanks, Victor. Thanks both. We've had a couple of questions about how to know, how to fail fast, how to know that your training isn't going well, and so that you don't lose 3 hours of training. What tips do you have, Luca, for monitoring your training, making sure that things do line up and it's moving in the right direction?
So my best advice is look at the things before you start the training. The way I generally check for mismatch is like I create a merge node, I set it to difference, and I connect the two pipe, and you know where the changes should be. And if you ever done any sort of QC using the merge set to difference, is kind of standard. So like you should know what you should see there. If like you see that the whole image is changing, you know something is wrong. That's like the golden rule, check everything before you do. But that's the same for whenever you work in comp, before you set a long render there for days, you know, make sure that like you have all the node enabled first, because you never know, you don't want to waste that time. Then like luckily in CopyCat we thought about this, so like we put in there the graph table to see if like the actual training is going down. That's like extremely important, but also the contact sheet that happens in the viewer and now in the properties since 15.0 and 14.1 to see that like everything is lining up, because sometimes, you know, you think you've done your check-in, but like if you have 3,000 images, are you really gonna check 3,000 images? Probably not. So like having a look at like the contact sheet every so often is very useful. And lastly, I would say there is the preview pipe, which is an hidden pipe in CopyCat, which is on the left side, I think, that you can pull out and connect it to any image. And like essentially while it's training, is gonna, every time it saves a checkpoint, it's gonna do an inference on that image and it will display it for you in the viewer. So you can see if the model is learning to work on an image that is not in the training. And those are like the most effective way to see if the thing is going rough, yeah. I would say.
For me, something that I found very helpful is like, don't be afraid to stop the training, because you can always resume. So just stop, use the inference, check, and it's like, it's getting better than before. Good. If not, well, there is something that needs to be addressed. So what I will do in production is like, instead of just putting at the end of the day and just leave it, is just, I'm going to wait a bit. So I'm going to supervise a bit the training in order to understand if it's actually improving, because sometimes we are overtraining, and overtraining can have even negative effects, or at least not doing anything, which is not good. So just to have an eye, so keep an eye on the training, because sometimes more is not better. So just to understand what's going on with this. Is improving because of the steps, or is improving because I need to feed with new inputs or new ground truth? So yeah, that is something to keep in mind.
Thanks both. And we're running out of time now, so we're going to have to wrap up, but a couple of quick ones. So Roro asked, when would the release date for the crypto tools? That would be the two models that we're about to add to the Cattery. If you're not familiar with the Cattery, it's our library of open source models. And we've got two that we're just prepping to release, hopefully around the time of the Nuke 15.1 release. And speaking of which, we have another question, which is it a big gain to use Nuke 14.15 for training versus local machine? Oh, so I think this is talking about distributed training. Yes, you can. I mean, the big benefit of the distributed training is being able to offload it from your machine so you can keep working. But also, obviously, as you add more machines to the mix, you can get much more performance. But overall, I would say there's a huge benefit to using a more recent version of Nuke. Each version, we've introduced new ways, training strategies to improve performance. And there's a new one coming in Nuke 15.1 called Mixed Precision Training, which can, in some circumstances, speed up your training by a factor of 2. And in Nuke 14, we added mixed multi-resolution training, which also doubled the training time. So there's big increases in performance since Nuke 13. I really encourage you to try out the more recent versions. Sadly, that's all we've got time for. I hope you enjoyed the session. We'll be back, I'm sure, with more in the future. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Victor, I really appreciate you joining us for this. It's been fascinating working with you. And I look forward to doing more in the future. And Luca, great work on this shot, mind-blowing stuff.
He's the star. He's the real star. Really.
You're a wizard, Harry. Awesome. Right.
Well,
thanks so much, everyone. Thanks.